record are we want to explain why we need advanced selectors, and we're also going to list some advanced selectors. So again, you don't have to memorize this stuff. This is all stuff you can look up, but just want to kind of draw your attention to some things to maybe keep in the back of your head when you're creating CSS and see some of what's available to you. Now, we're going to do something like we did this morning, code alongs, giving you guys some exercise time. So let's take a few minutes and go ahead and set up a new workspace like we did this morning. I think it's probably best to keep this separate. So I just put some instructions into Slack. Let's create a new directory in your Student Labs folder. We don't need to worry about like individual folders within this main directory. Let's just create 2 HTML files and 2 CSS files. And this will be our workspace for this afternoon. So go ahead and work on those steps and give me a thumbs up in Slack when you have that locked and loaded. While you guys are doing that, this is the Seinfeldia book I mentioned earlier. I don't know if you guys have seen that. It came out sometime this year, I think this summer. But it's been pretty good so far. I'm only a few chapters in, but for Pedro, and the rest of you guys, big Seinfeld buffs, so far it's pretty fun. I will send it to each of you individually. We'll pass it around throughout the next 13 weeks. Happy to do that. If you guys even find time to have a hobby or other activity outside of this class. All right, 11 thumbs up. We're getting there. 15. Okay, cool. So I will go ahead and move forward. So the big question that we're all asking ourselves is, why male models? No, just kidding. Why do we need advanced selectors? Well, a couple of reasons. Advanced selectors help eliminate extra classes. So sometimes instead of creating a class for some specific styling, a lot of times we can accomplish the same thing just using some CSS selectors. And that's helpful in less code because it's less code that we need to put in our HTML. So instead of creating a new class attribute, which can clutter stuff up, we can accomplish much of that just being more specific with advanced selectors. So they provide no new functionality, but they do make our code cleaner. Additionally, if you guys have probably noticed with jQuery, one of the really great benefits of jQuery is that it's really popular with folks that are maybe just more HTML and CSS oriented, but they don't know a lot about JavaScript. Maybe they don't know a lot about DOM manipulation using vanilla JavaScript like you guys do. So the whole thing about jQuery is that it uses these same CSS selectors to create jQuery objects. So if you know CSS pretty well and you can get really specific, then jQuery becomes a little bit easier. So that's, I would say, another kind of side benefit to knowing about these advanced selectors. And let's get started. We're going to look at 4 family selectors. And again, I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to run through some quick examples of these and then give you some time to build some yourself. So if you want to code along, that's fine, but I'm not really going to hold up a whole lot because I'm going to give you guys time to practice this. So let me get set up here. Did the using Atom with that Browser Plus functionality, did you guys find that helpful versus sharing my entire screen?
I thought it was good.
Okay. Well, when we get to stand-ups, if you guys want to give us some feedback, that'd be cool. Because I'm going to use that again here. When we get to like full stack applications, obviously Atom can't like run a Node app, but I think for what we're doing now, it does the job. So here we go. So I have some HTML, I have my CSS here, and then kind of the rendered version of what we're doing right over here. The first family selector we want to look at is this splat, kind of this little starry looking thing. So this selector selects everything on the page, and it's useful for when you want to style everything. You can add optional ancestors if you want to get a little bit more specific. But let me show you an example of this. The main feature or the main use case that I use for this universal selector is if I'm trying to do some positioning or something, occasionally I will use this splat or this universal selector to select everything on the page and maybe give it like a really thin red border so I can quickly visually see everything on the page, and that helps me get my bearings when I'm doing positioning type stuff. So I just copied in from the README a little bit of code, 2 A tags and a span. And just to demonstrate this, let me put in, we'll just create like a border, solid red border. Maybe I'll give this like 1px. Let's see what that looks like. Cool, so you can see sometimes it's a little bit of overkill, but a really quick and dirty way like to add some border if you're trying to visualize the elements on a page. That's really when I personally use it the most. But if there is something that you want to add to every element, and we're talking about something super, super general and broad, that's what that splat will do. It'll add something to every element on the page. Number 2 here that I put into Slack, let's look at this greater than symbol. So this selects an immediate child. So if you want to add styling to just a child, but the parent has descendants that are similar to the child. So I'm going to copy in that HTML from the README. And so if you look here, so here's an example. We have a UL, or an unordered list, In this unordered list, the first li also contains an unordered list, which also contains an li. So we have like some children and some grandchildren that are the same element type. So if I want to get really specific with this, let's say that I wanted to only affect the direct descendants of this greater UL, I could do something like this. I could do UL and then only get the direct descendants of that UL that are also in LI. So let me throw in, maybe I'll do like a font family here just to demonstrate. Do like Georgia. I'm going to comment out this up here because that's going to get really annoying. I don't want that on every single element. So I'm going to refresh. And it did it to both. Oh yeah, I remember the trick to this one. So you actually need to do it from the body and then the descendants. Oh, that didn't work either. What am I missing here? Let me try another property. Let me try like a border here, just on this one. Solid red. So that border isn't even.
Is it supposed to be a colon after the solid red or a semicolon?
Yeah, it should be a colon. Yeah, good eye. So that does work, but it did it on both of them. Let me try one thing. Let me see if like the Atom browser is being a little wonky. It's affecting both of them. Let me try one more thing here. Why are you? So again, this works just fine in rehearsal, and then you actually get to it. Completely blow that up. Let me get rid of this. Just bear with me 1 second. I'm just taking a look at this in like Google Chrome because the dev tools are a little better. I just want to like make sure that this is, that everything is getting added the way it should. So I have the LI. That's right. So the UL. Let me come back to that one. Let me check on that one during our little exercise time. I'm missing something really small there. Well, in any event, the idea is that that selector is supposed to only apply to its direct children. So bear with me, and I'll take a look at that at the at exercise time. I must not be using that one correctly. Let's take a look at these last two, and then give you guys a chance to practice this. So for this one, this little squiggly or the tilde, so this is the sibling selector. So it only selects subsequent siblings, not preceding siblings. So wherever we designate this rule, it's only going to affect like the siblings that come after where we add it to our HTML. So let me put in some more code here, and this one better work. So right here, here's an example. I'm going to comment that out so we get this nice and clean. All right, cool. So here we have just a basic title. We have a paragraph. We have an unordered list with one LI that also contains a P tag right here. Then we also have like another P tag underneath it. So let's play around with this kind of tilde. And I only want the paragraph that directly is a direct sibling of this H1. So I want to put a rule on this paragraph here. I don't want to put a rule on the P tag within that LI. So that would be a use case for this particular advanced selector. So let's try this one. Let's do an H1, and I want to grab the direct siblings of that H1, the direct P tag siblings. And I want to make the color red for those particular ones. So now if we refresh, so now we can see that the direct P siblings of that H1, the color is now red. However, this P tag within the LI element is not affected. So that would be a use case for that tilde. And then finally, number 4, let's take a look at the plus selector. So this is the immediate sibling selector. So it only selects the first sibling. So the tilde affected all of the direct siblings. What if we only wanted to grab the first P tag after that H1? So I'm going to change this tilde. I'll just change this to a plus and save that. And then if we refresh, so now the only element that is selected is that first P tag, the first sibling of that H1. Cool. Let me stop my screen share there. Any questions about any of those? We're at a little bit of an exercise time. Any questions other than the second selector that I showed you? I'm going to check out W3 schools. I think I was using that one incorrectly. And let me put our exercises into Slack here. So it's pretty much just recreating what I did just locally. So number 1, make all the child elements of the div tag have a text color of red. Number 2, give only the outer LI tag a padding of 10px. And then so on and so forth. So just practicing the 4 selectors we just went through. So let's take just a few minutes and work on that. We'll just do it here in the main room. And go ahead and give me a thumbs up in Slack when you do complete all 4 of those. And then we will move forward. All right, folks, how we doing? I see 5 thumbs ups. Is anyone stuck or just frustrated? Okay, cool. It's cool if you are. This stuff, again, like you don't have to master it. You can always look it up. But I just wanted to kind of show you guys some examples. So while you're working on this, I actually wanted to show you, again, the greater than selector that I kind of beefed on earlier. I did the code a little incorrectly. So I just want to like revisit that. So you can keep working, or if you want to watch, and then we'll move forward. Again, this stuff, we got bigger fish to fry than like advanced CSS selectors, but just to show you guys what we were going for here. I'm going to share my screen. And so the idea with that less than selector is that you want to style every element where a specific element is its parent. So what do I mean by that? Well, in this example, I did like 2 quick and dirty examples here. So right here in my CSS, clean that up. Here on line 4, I'm creating a rule that will only apply to every p tag that is a direct child of a div in my HTML. And so any p tag that's a direct child of a div is going to get the color of green. And so we can see that right here, this word affected. And here in my HTML, I have a section, I have a div, and I have one p tag that's wrapped in a span tag. And then I have another p tag that isn't wrapped in anything. In fact, it's a direct, could be considered a child of this outer div element. So here in the browser, the p tag wrapped with the span is not affected by that rule. And then the p tag that is a direct child of that div is affected, so it turns green. And then one more example, so you guys should have the HTML for title, paragraph, and list paragraph. We can also do that here. So again, just to demonstrate, I put one more rule where this rule will apply to every p tag that is a direct child of an li element. And if so, it's going to have a font size of 50px. So right here, we can see like this really obnoxious list paragraph is huge font. And over here in the HTML, we can see what's going on. So it's any p tag that's a direct child of an li. So the only p tag that's a direct child of an li is right here, this p tag inside this li. So this p tag is not affected by that rule, nor is this one. It's just this one inside the li. So it's a little contrived, but again, it's out there. If there's some particular circumstance that you're trying to get really surgical about, that's an option for you. Cool, we've got 9 thumbs up. So let's take about another 30 seconds or so. If you don't get any of them, that's fine. I'm happy to help you guys out during lab time, but I do want to move forward. Stop my share for a little bit. And again, like this morning, I'm happy to push up my code to your repo. We'll also have the video, so you guys will have plenty of this code. I can go ahead and Slack out what I have so far for this if you guys want, if you want it for reference. So there's what I have so far, if you want to just plug that in for now. And I'm going to move forward so we can get to lab time. So the next thing I want to talk about, this is actually, I think, really valuable stuff because this directly is applicable to jQuery. In fact, we use this during our forums coverage on Tuesday. So these advanced selectors, I think will potentially use much more frequently than the family selectors that we just went through. So attribute selectors, these are super valuable. So you can test for any attribute, not only an ID or a class, but any attribute that an element may contain. And here's some examples I just put into Slack. I'll use this link that we have here just to kind of demonstrate some of these principles. And I'll put that here in my HTML, and I will share my screen, and we'll just walk through a couple of these. So I refresh my page. So I commented out the majority of my code here. Let me shrink that down. So I'm just going to be playing with the Google link right here. So a couple of cool features that we can do. So if we want to test if an attribute even exists, one way to do that is to put the attribute in square brackets like so. So if I want to grab any A tag that has that href attribute on it, which, I mean, let's be honest, I can't really think of a situation where maybe you'd have an A tag that didn't have an href on it. But if so, let's make the font size, I don't know, 50px again. So if I refresh, so that link gets the font size of 50px. And it's strictly because that A tag has the href attribute, which is pretty sweet. A couple of other ones which are really handy, particularly with jQuery, this is really cool. So you can also search for an exact match. So let's say that I don't know maybe the value of a particular attribute, but I do know what attribute I'm looking for. We did this particularly in JavaScript, in jQuery forums, like we were looking for the inputs with a name field or the date field, things like that. We're grabbing values based on the name of that field. So this is really handy. So if I want to find whatever element where the value of that element for the href attribute is google.com, and this needs to be pretty exact, obviously, if we're looking for google.com. So if I save that and refresh, so I still get that same behavior, 50px. I'll put one more link in here just for demonstration purposes. We'll make this like schmitty.com. We'll make this Schmitty, just to make sure that this is working the way we think it is. So here we have a Google and we have a Schmitty, and they're both A tags. So if I refresh, so the Google, so that's an exact match. That the rule does apply, but Schmitty, it doesn't apply. That's a shame for Schmitty. If we want to test the start of an attribute, so maybe if we're not looking for an exact match, like just the start, we can use this little caret symbol. So maybe I want to see something that starts with maybe like www.goo, like for Google, or even more specific. Let's say that I'm looking for hrefs that start with HTTP. So maybe I actually have some links, some anchor tags, because you can create anchor tags in navs, right, that connect to like other pages or other either other pages on your site or actually other sections of your existing page, and they wouldn't have an HTTP prefix, obviously. So that would be a good way to delineate those two. So if I refresh this, since both of these have HTTP in the value for that href attribute, they're both affected by that rule. So that tests the start of the attribute. What if we wanted to test the end of the attribute? So that's where $sign comes in. Cash money, y'all. So if I wanted to see what ends in like Google ends in an E, so if I just wanted to find like e.com and only apply this rule to that one, if I refresh, then Google is affected. Schmitty is not. There's also testing a substring. This is a really cool one, actually, I think. So let's say that I just want to test a portion of that URL, like just a series of characters in that value for href. So I could do, I'm just going to do 00, actually. So whichever element has an 00 in that value, I'm going to affect it. And so it affects the Google only. If I change this to TT for Schmidt, then they're both affected. Awesome. And that's because HTTP has TT in it. So let me do a TY there. So TY only belongs to Schmitty. Two more here, just quickly. So if you want to test an exact word separated by a space, so this could be really handy if you have classes, right? So class names, if I was going to create a class down here, and maybe, actually, I'll just do it right here. So if I wanted this A tag to have a class, two classes, you know, class 1 and then class 2. So if we're going to combine classes on an element, we need to do a space in between them. So maybe if I'm trying to, actually, you could do that just with, like, if you wanted to pinpoint that, you could do it this way. Class 1, class 2, that would be a way to get really specific with that. But if we're looking for like an exact word, or maybe some sort of exact, let's just try it out here. Let's say that I have an attribute, we'll just use the example here in the lesson that I put in here. So an exact word separated by a space. So I could do A and then like data, values, and then I could do equals value. So put the tilde here. And like class 1 or so. So for some reason, if I wanted to get this specific element that has two classes, I could use something like this. And this would actually be data values. So we've seen that we can add like data attributes, name attributes, meta attributes, alt attributes, things like that. So if we wanted to get somewhat specific, we could do it that way. Again, if I refresh, so this only affects Google because Google has a data value. The value includes class 1 in there. And then finally, if we want to test the start of a hyphenated word, the example here, so this is a pretty common one. So in your HTML, if you want to get specific and let your browser know what language you're using, you can put a lang attribute, and particularly on HTML tags. This is usually where you'll find this lang attribute. So I'm just going to add lang equals en-us to my HTML, my opening HTML tag. And so then if I'm testing that, it would look like so. So the HTML, specifically the lang attribute, if it equals en, so some part of a value that may have a dash in it, you could do it that way. And then let me refresh, and since everything in the HTML is affected, both Google and Schmitty get that font size of 50px. So I'm going to stop my screen share and just see if you guys have any questions. Super exciting stuff here. But maybe these will come in handy at some point. So any questions about those before we hop into a bit of a exercise opportunity? Okay, cool. So just 6 steps to kind of wrap up this section on advanced selectors. There's 6 challenges there. So if you want to take a stab at those, please give me a thumbs up in Slack when you've completed them, and then we will move forward.